Ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to show you a few clips of a video I made back in October of 2018. Tell me if you remember it. Disagree with me if you wish, but baseball is one of the greatest sports of all time.
Before we can jump right into it, we first need to look at how the schedule was shortened from 100 administration purposes to 100. Atlanta, Tampa Bay, and Washington across the wild card series to move on to the division. And the divisions are the West, unsettled this particular Atlanta, and Colorado, plus 12 games. And the Commissioner's Trophy was won by the Oakland Athletics.
What's good, everybody? Green Collar Drums here, and welcome to this video. Today we are going to be taking a look back on my old ideas for a Major League Baseball expansion and reworking them pretty dang good. So, are you ready? Let's play ball. Now, whenever you're talking about expansion, the best place to start would be the teams, am I right? Well, that's how we started off the last video, and that's exactly how we're starting off this video. Modern day Major League Baseball consists of two leagues, the American League and the National League. Each league has three different divisions, West, Central, and East, and each division has 5 total teams. So for example, the American League West has the Los Angeles Angels, the Oakland Athletics, the Houston Astros, the Seattle Mariners, and the Texas Rangers. In the previous video, I suggested disbanding both central divisions and moving their teams to either the West or the East. Well, since then I've had a change of heart and have decided to reinstate the central division while adding a 4th division. On that note, I think it's time I show you what that division is. And there it is. The Pacific Division. As you know, there are quite a lot of teams out on the West Coast, so it makes total sense. And I think it's also worth noting that now there would be only 4 teams per division. 4 times 4 is 16, double that, 32. And that's what we are expanding to today. And now we get to see how the teams would align. I'm going to start with the American League Pacific because that's my division. The Oakland A's are in it. And so are the Los Angeles Angels and the Seattle Mariners, all 3 moving over from the AL West. Now I'm very certain you noticed this brown P. What does that represent? Well, I'll tell you what it represents. It represents the city of Portland, Oregon. I mean, after all, there are renderings for a ballpark that could be built in that city. But the big question is, what am I calling this team? Well, I was originally going to call it the Portland Lumber, but I quickly realized that would be too similar of a name to soccer's Portland Timbers. So I had to think outside the box. Let's think, what animals are native to the state of Oregon? And I narrowed it down to 3. The Portland Beavers, which was a former team by the way, the Portland Coyotes, or the Portland Otters. In the end, I ultimately decided to pick the Otters. The Houston Astros and Texas Rangers remain in the AL West after the A's, Angels, and Mariners take off for the Pacific, and moving over from the Central Division are the Kansas City Royals and the Minnesota Twins. This leaves the Cleveland Indians, Chicago White Sox, and Detroit Tigers in the Central, while the Toronto Blue Jays abandon the East for the Central. And that leaves the other 4 teams in the AL East, being the Boston Red Sox, New York Yankees, Baltimore Orioles, and Tampa Bay Rays, to remain in the AL East. Now I want to talk about Tampa Bay for just a minute. The city of Tampa just recently elected a new mayor, and I read an article that says that she is willing to do whatever it takes to keep the Rays in Tampa Bay. There's just one problem with that. You see, Tampa is the spring training home of the New York Yankees. And it's also where their single A team, the Tampa Tarpons, play. So how likely is it that the Yankees will just allow the Rays to build a brand new stadium in Tampa? It's my prediction that they will just say, "F you, go somewhere else." However, I don't think the Rays should leave the state of Florida, as there are 2 other major cities within the state that could really use a Major League Baseball team. First up is Orlando. With both of these cities, my first idea was to look in the downtown area to see if there's enough room for a Major League Baseball stadium. And I quickly found with Orlando that wasn't happening. Downtown is just way too packed. So my next idea was the theme park district. Disney World, Universal, SeaWorld, and so on and so forth. And luckily for me, I found a location just off of one of the freeways that I think would be perfect for a Major League stadium. In fact, what you are looking at here is a closer bird's eye view of the lot with Marlins Park as a reference point. Now the only cons I can really think of is just that it's so far away from downtown, but there's a lot of pros as there is a lot to do. SeaWorld is right across the way, and Universal is about 5 miles away, so there's no shortage of things to do after the game. And now let's shift our focus to Jacksonville. Downtown Jacksonville is pretty crowded as well. However, despite that, I was able to find 2 potential locations for a Major League ballpark. We shall first take a look at this area. It may not look like much right now, but you could probably fill some land over that water and you'd have a big enough lot for a potential ballpark. You may also notice that TIAA Bank Field is right across the freeway, and that is the home of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And now we hop across the river and take a look at this area. One thing you will notice is it is absolutely ginormous. In fact, it's so big that not only a ballpark could fit here, but other development could also move in. Plus, another aesthetic bonus is you'd have a great view of the river and the Hart Bridge out in the distance. And if you don't believe me that other development could also fit onto this lot, here's Marlins Park once again to prove you wrong. There's only one major problem that comes to mind. Jacksonville already has a baseball stadium and a team. Okay, it's a minor league AA team, but still. And to make matters worse, this team is the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp, the AA affiliate of the Marlins. In a similar fashion to the Tampa case, how likely is it that the Jumbo Shrimp would want a Major League Baseball team playing in their hometown? Not likely, if you ask me. Based on all of these factors, I had to make a decision, Orlando or Jacksonville. And I chose Orlando, and I call this team the Gators. After all, we are in Florida, it's Gator country, so it only makes sense, am I right? Alright, enough American League, let's move over to the National League. There are 4 National League teams out on the West Coast: Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Diego, and Arizona. They would all abandon the West and form the NL Pacific. That leaves Colorado in the NL West, and St. Louis, Chicago, and Milwaukee abandoned the Central for the West. This means Cincinnati and Pittsburgh remain in the Central, and they are joined by Atlanta and Miami, moving over from the East. And that leaves Washington, New York, and Philadelphia in the East. And they are joined by another expansion franchise, which is baseball nostalgia for many, the Montreal Expos. I mean, I wasn't even a fan of them when they were around, and I want to see them come back. That's how nostalgic they are for me. Okay, I've been talking about this for way too long. Let's move on to another category. How about the season schedule? Throughout this segment, I will be referencing another proposal from baseball writer Tracy Ringolsby. Now, he posted this to Sports Illustrated, and if you want to check that out, I left a link down below. Now, the first part of the Ringolsby proposal was to remove both the American League and the National League and go with only 4 divisions. Ringolsby also proposed that each team play a total of 12 games against the 7 other teams in that team's division.
That's 12 against the Rangers, the Angels, the Astros, the Mariners, the Twins, the Royals, and the White Sox.
But only 12 total games is not nearly enough when you're only playing 3 division opponents. So I decided to get clever. Modern day schedules has each team playing 19 total games against the 4 other teams. So I decided to chop 1 off that number and go with 18 total games. 9 at home, the other 9 on the road. Now, let's use games against the Angels as an example. You'll notice that each individual series is stacked like a pyramid. In this case, each team hosts 1 series of 2 games, 1 set of 3, and 1 more set of 4. And I can echo these words for each individual series against the Portland Otters and the Seattle Mariners. Another detail of the Ringolsby proposal is that your team would play only 1 series against everybody else who isn't in your division. Originally I thought this was a good idea, but a few months later I realized that this breaks a tradition that an American League team would visit every American League ballpark every year. Same goes for the National League. So I decided to revert back to tradition. Now let me tell you how I would handle this. The A's, as an example, would play only 6 games against everybody else who isn't in the AL Pacific. However, with some teams it wouldn't be an even mix between home and away. In some cases, you might play only 2 home games and 4 away games against one particular team. Or it could be the reverse, 4 at home and only 2 away. Let's use the AL West as an example. With the Astros, the A's would host only 2 games, the Astros would host 4. And it's the flip for the Rangers. The A's host 4, and the Rangers host only 2. However, with the Royals and the Twins, it's an even mix. 3 in Oakland, and the other 3 in either Kansas City or Minnesota. The last thing I want to talk about is interleague play. As you all know, every team has a team from the other league that they play every year. In Oakland's case, that would be the San Francisco Giants. And I think I figured out the solution to interleague play. There would be 10 total series every single year. Let's start with a visual representation of how the A's would play the NL Pacific. As you can see here, the A's have 2 sets of 4 games at home, one against the Giants and the other against the Dodgers. And they have 2 sets of 2 at home against the Giants and the Padres, 2 sets of 2 games away, Giants and Dodgers, 2 sets of 4 away, Giants and Padres, and finally there's a set of 3 at home and 3 away, both with the Arizona Diamondbacks. You'll notice that the A's and Giants are both hosting the same number of games, 6 apiece. However, when the A's and the Giants play any other division, that number would be cut in half to 3. Let's use the NL Central as an example. You will notice that there is still 2 sets of 4 at home, in this case it's the Marlins and the Pirates, 2 sets of 4 away, Braves and Reds, 2 sets of 2 at home, also Braves and Reds, and 2 sets of 2 away, Marlins and Pirates. So no matter which interleague division you play, you always get to play the same number of home games and the same number of road games. And another bonus is you get to visit all of the interleague teams that you play that year, something that is currently impossible with the current schedule. The funny thing about all of this is there is something completely identical between my new ideas and the Ringolsby proposal. That proposal shortened the entire season schedule from 162 games to 156. When I did all the math with my new ideas, it totaled up to 156. I was absolutely stunned. I couldn't believe it. Oh, that's right. There is one more thing between Ringolsby and myself that is completely identical. 1 day off every week. As I flip through this mock 2027 schedule that I put together for the A's, you will see that I indeed did give the A's 1 day off every week. Either Monday, Wednesday, or Thursday. One more detail before I start the slideshow. May 2027 is a 6-week calendar, so to keep it at 5 weeks, I included May 1st with the rest of March and April. So now that you know all the details, here comes the slideshow. Feel free to pause the video at your pace so you can check out the entire schedule. Have fun! I messed up big time with this September schedule. I had the A's playing the Otters 10 total games this month. But let's remember, this is just a mock schedule. It's a demonstration. That's all I have to say about that. And now we get to move to the last category. Well, our last category of the day is the playoffs. First, we'll take a look at how it currently works. There are 2 wildcard teams that play one single game. Whoever wins moves on to the ALDS or NLDS depending on the league. This means that the visiting team could play the wildcard game and lose, and they are denied the chance to host a playoff game that year.
What the...
I think it goes without saying, this is something that I completely hate. I mean, for crying out loud, these teams worked long and hard just to get to the playoffs. They should be at least granted the ability to host at least one game. Come on, Major League Baseball. Anyways, after the wild card game is the Division Series. After that, it is the Championship Series. After that, it is the World Series. The wild card game is just one stupid game. The AL and NLDS, 3 out of 5. The LCS, 4 out of 7, and the World Series, 4 out of 7 as well. Well, that being said, I think it's time to ditch this bracket and come up with something new. Let me show you this one. I couldn't label anything for this bracket because there's just not enough room to do that. However, there are 8 slots at the bottom of the bracket. That is for 8 American League teams or 8 National League teams. I've put some numbers up to represent each individual seed that a team could be for the playoffs. In a similar fashion to hockey and basketball, the number 1 team takes on the number 8 team, 2 takes on 7, 3 takes on 6, and 4 takes on 5. Simple enough, right? Now, the Kelly green numbers are the division winners. The darker green numbers are the wildcard teams who were second place in their respective division. And this is where we get to start building the bracket. The number 1 team in the American League is the Pacific winner, the Oakland Athletics. The number 2 team is the AL East winner, the Orlando Gators. The number 3 team are the Blue Jays, winners of the AL Central. The number 4 team are the AL West winners, the Houston Astros. And now for the wildcard teams. The 5th seed belongs to the Portland Otters, second place in the AL Pacific and the best record between the 4 wildcard teams. The New York Yankees claimed the 6th seed, second place in the AL East. The Chicago White Sox were second place in the AL Central and claimed the number 7 seed, third best overall record between the 4 wildcard teams. And finally, the runner-up in the AL West was the Minnesota Twins, and they had the worst record between the 4 wildcard teams. They've now got to go to Oakland and face the A's. And now let's build the National League bracket. The best team in the National League was the winner of the NL Central, the Atlanta Braves. The second best team were the winners of the NL West, the Chicago Cubs. The third best are the Washington Nationals, the winners of the NL East. And claiming the worst record among division winners are the San Francisco Giants, winners of the NL Pacific. Among the wildcards, the New York Mets had the best record, runner-ups in the NL East. The runner-ups in the NL West are the Colorado Rockies, and they claim seed number 6. In the National League Pacific, the San Diego Padres claimed seed number 7 by being second place in the division. And finally, we have the Miami Marlins taking second place in the NL Central and the worst record among wildcards, so that's the 8th seed for them. Now this is a completely different series from the wildcard series that I suggested in the first video. This is the LFS, the League First Series. From here, whoever wins the LFS moves on to the AL or NLDS, the League Division Series. And one more detail before I reveal the winners, the LFS is 3 out of 5 games. Our first winner comes between the Oakland A's and the Minnesota Twins. I think you can see it already, the Oakland A's were the winners. And Oakland's next opponent is the New York Yankees, who took at least 3 out of 5 from Toronto. Meanwhile, between Houston and Portland, the Astros made short work of the Otters and moved on to the LDS. However, their next opponent also made short work of the Chicago White Sox. The Orlando Gators move on to the LDS as well. On the National League side, it was a hard-fought battle between Atlanta and Miami. In the end, the Braves prevailed and moved on to the LDS. The Colorado Rockies also advanced to the LDS after a hard-fought battle with the Washington Nationals. The Mets still have not forgotten about that 2016 wildcard game and defeated the Giants to move on to the LDS. And joining the Mets in the LDS are the Chicago Cubs, after beating up on the San Diego Padres. The League Division Series would also be a 3 out of 5 set. And next up is the Championship Series, which is also 3 out of 5, which is a change from the current format where it is 4 out of 7. The Oakland A's continue to swing the heavy bats and move on to the LCS, and they have home field advantage for Game 1 and Game 7 if necessary. And the Orlando Gators managed to pull off a huge upset and ended the Astros season early. Back in the National League, Colorado was just no match for the Braves and Atlanta steamrolled their way into the LCS. But the same could be said on the other side of the bracket, as the Cubs made very short work of the New York Mets in the LDS to move on. Now this bracket here is taking us from 4 teams to 2, and that is the World Series. In the ALCS, it is Oakland versus Orlando. And who won? Your winner is the Oakland Athletics. Now, the NLCS is the Atlanta Braves versus the Chicago Cubs. Who won there? Oh, it's just the Atlanta Braves, your National League champions, nothing big here. Well, there you go. The 2027 World Series is Oakland versus Atlanta. Who's going to come out on top? Well, this is the one thing about building your own bracket just for fun. You get to dictate who wins. So you better believe I was going to make my favorite team, the Oakland Athletics, win the World Series. Now, even though this is just a demonstration bracket, I have full faith that one day the A's will break that curse and win the World Series again, even though it's been about 30 years now. And that's the ball game. You have just witnessed my new updated ideas for a Major League Baseball expansion to 32 teams. Thank you all for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up and a comment. To my subscribers, I shall see you in the next video, whatever it is. And to everybody else, as you drive home, please do so safely. Goodbye, everybody.